Okay, so I'm going to be teaching you how to use your calculator to solve systems with three unknowns. And if you take a look here, you have this 5x minus y plus 2z. First of all, don't forget that there's a 1 right here. And anytime that you see a variable without a number in front of it, it's always just the number 1. We are going to be creating a matrix, and it's essentially going to be 4 units or 4 items wide by 3 items deep, and it's going to include all of the coefficients that you see in each of these lines. So here we have a matrix, and in our matrix, initially, you would have to go, well, first on your paper, go ahead and create it, then I'll show you where to go when you use your calculator. But you're going to start with the x terms, and if you'll notice, all of my x terms here are lined up. So starting with your x terms, you have 5, and then you have 2, and then you have -2. And then if you go to your y terms, those are your next. Now notice this last one doesn't have any y terms. There is no y term here. Like there's just doesn't exist. No y term. So all that means is you're going to put a -1, and you're going to put a +1, and you're going to put 0 because there's no y term. And so you're going to put a 0 as a place term holder. So this would be your x's, this would be your y's, then you would have your z terms. And if you look at your z terms, you have 2, and you have -2, and you have 2. Now you have equals, and so you can see how all your equal signs line up. And then lastly, you have your non-x, y, and z terms, and then that goes -1, 8, and -12. So what you're going to do is you're going to go to your calculator, your graphing calculator. You're going to go to menu 8 this time, and then you're going to choose F1, which has to do with simultaneous solving, and then you're going to do F2 because it's for 3 unknowns. And then you're going to see something that looks like this, but with no numbers or zeros, or maybe if it was previously used, other letters in it. All you have to do is start typing, and you just type a 5, and then hit execute, and it will bring you to here. And then you type -1, execute, 2, execute, -1, execute. You keep doing that until you fill in everything. And at the very end, you just type execute. And then when you type execute, you'll be able to see your answer. And hold on just a sec. After you hit execute, you'll have 1, -4, and -5. It's not in this format, and actually these should be curves because they're parentheses. So basically this is the way the answer should be written, is like it's kind of like an ordered pair, but there's actually 3. So this is your x value, your y value, and your z value. And so that would be your final answer. Now if we come over here to example 2, you're going to notice that you have x, y, and z, but they're not in the right order. So over here in the first question, you'll see that your x term followed by your y term, then your z term, then your equal sign, and then your non-x, y, and z term. There's issues over here with question number 2 because things are not in the right order. So for instance, your y term needs to be moved over here to the other side. So you would have x, and then you would have a -y, and then you would have equals -3, because anytime you move something to the other side of the equal sign, you're going to have to change its sign. So here, this x term, it's going to have to move over. The y term is also going to have to move over. So when you move that -5x over to the other side, it's going to become +5x. When you move that -1y over to the other side, it's going to become +1y. And the z is already where it belongs, so you're going to go just plus z, and that equals a -22. So then over on the last one, we don't have an x term, right? It's missing. So we just leave that out. And then we have -5y plus 6z equals -1. So now you have 3 different equations, and they're in the correct order. So when we go to make our matrix for question number 2, we'll start with our x terms. We have a 1 and a 5 and a 0x. We have no x's, so we have 1, 5, and 0 for our x terms. Then we have -1, 1, and -5. So -1, 1, -5. And then z, we don't have a z term here. No z. There's no z term on the first equation. So we have 0, 1, and 6. So 0, 1, and 6. And then our equal signs are all lined up. And then we have -3, -22, and -1. So -3, -22, -1. Go ahead and pause the video, plug that into your calculator, and see if you get your answer. So if you did that, you should get -4, -1, and -1 as your final answer for question number 2. I'm going to go ahead and scroll down so that you guys can see questions 3 and 4. Go ahead and try to do 3, 4, 5, and 6 and work them out on paper. Try to get them in the right order. Review the video if you're confused about ordering them. And then I'll put the answers up here just shortly. The answer to number 3 should be -206. The answer to question number 4 is -30, -6. The answer to number 5 is -204. And the answer to number 6 is 33, -5. Once you get all these correct, let me know and I can work on getting you a test so that you can retake a test if you're missing it. I hope you have enjoyed learning how to use your calculator to find the answer to 3 equations with 3 unknowns.